Hello everybody, it's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. In this video, I found a very interesting post on the Bachelor Nation subreddit, which explains someone's opinions as to why the Jenn, Tran, and Devin relationship didn't work out. Now, of course, we watched it all spill out on After the Final Rose. A lot of people have said, oh, Devin had his chance to speak. Devin clearly didn't think so, and he felt blindsided. Shared a bunch of text messages, which probably or most likely could have been done or handled in a much better way. I'll go ahead and say definitely could have been handled in a better way. But what I find interesting is I've actually been met with a little bit of resistance over my coverage of this. People saying, oh, Dave, you've got microaggressions. You're anti-Jenn, which, by the way, I really like Jenn. But yeah, we also know there's two sides to every story. I was criticized for saying that Jenn was the third pick for this season. And it's like, I guess I'm just not allowed to say the truth to some people. Maybe it's that I hammered it down when people argued and go, no, she wasn't. I go, no, it was supposed to be Daisy. They announced it was supposed to be, Maria. They were supposed to be on Call Her Daddy. These are facts. And then when I shared the story that she got Dancing with the Stars last minute, they gave her 45 minutes after the final rose to get ready and get to the airport where they were going to fly her across the country and announce her for Dancing with the Stars. People said that's a microaggression. I'm sorry. I'm just reporting the news, guys. I'm reporting what's out there. I'll share my opinion on things, but some people have said, oh, if it's not Caitlin, Bristow, or Maria, Dave doesn't like them, as if I haven't fought. I mean, my next video is literally a pro-charity video, Charity Lawson. You know what I mean? Plenty of videos pro Katie and Michelle Young. I'm a huge supporter of her. Anyhow, I'm befuddled. People can make whatever opinions they want, but I'm not exactly going to go down without saying, I think your opinion is flawed. Anyway, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just read this entire thing this person said. I'm going to read it from top to bottom because I find it interesting. This is from someone who read all the text messages. Again, all of the text messages shouldn't have been released, but I think Devin should have probably shown the text messages to a trusted person like a Caitlin Bristow and then had this conversation. As you're going to see on tomorrow's morning rush hour podcast, I interviewed Susie Evans and we discussed this. Susie had a great podcast with Caitlin Bristow and Clayton Echard when they broke up. And if Jenn and Devin did the same thing, none of this would have happened. All this mess that played out was because an audience was picking sides, and Jenn, I guess, played into it. She's standing on the bar yelling F Devin, which I'm okay with her doing that. Just don't be surprised when Devin tries to share his side of the story. He should have done a better job doing that. All right, so anyway, you can scan that if you want to listen to that conversation. Blind spots, why they didn't work out and why Devin pulled away. And by the way, I'm going to read a few comments from people, and you'll be surprised how many people agree with this. There's a thing called squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that's usually like the loudest people get the most attention online, and then there's something called the silent majority. I don't think the silent majority supports Devin. I just think it might be more 70-30, 60-40 than you might see by reading the internet, which looks 99-1. Do you know what I mean? All right, so let's go into it. I'm someone who's pretty objective, good at psychology stuff, and in fact, that's what I do for work. As much as I spent days hating Devin, his messages did show there's two sides to the story. I think we all know how Devin is toxic and a narcissist, but I do want to talk about the blind spots, aka Jenn's red flags, because that context itself explained why he pulled away and why it didn't work out. Again, I can't say Devin's a narcissist. I don't have enough information to say that, and I'm also not a psychologist, but maybe this person knows something I didn't. The purpose of my post isn't to bash Jenn, because I think Devin is indeed a douche. But if you look at his messages objectively, you can piece the puzzle together and understand he did not just ghost her or pulled away immediately after the show. And it's not like he had no reasons to doubt the relationship. So this person's clearly just very much on thin ice. So they're trying to say, no, look, I get it. He's a douche. He's an asshole. He's all these things. But he did have a point, and that's kind of what it comes down to. I'm not going to spend much time talking about how toxic Devin is, because we all know already. Posting personal convos, insensitive at after the final rose, and didn't follow through on his promises. Okay, we get that. But is it true that his feelings changed for no reason? No. Here's a list of contexts and her red flags. Again, we've watched all of Devin's red flags play out. Jenn, in fact, had unrealistic expectations, which explained why he said, I just can't live up to your expectations and don't want you to diminish yourself for you. Evidence. She got mad at him for not making date night happen, but he had already explained that's because there was a hurricane in his area and he didn't have power or air conditioning for days and a lot was going on. She then diminished him by saying, you always give excuses like, oh, no AC. Like, dude, not having AC in Houston is probably insufferable. She also demanded him to be her therapist even at 2 a.m. He explained he was too tired to talk, but still made an effort to call her, only to be mocked by her. Oh, so all the promises about being there for me are true, except when it's 2 a.m. Like, goddamn, girl, it's 2 a.m. He has the right to say he's tired and can't be there for you. She had the Bachelorette chip on her shoulder, thinking he needs to do right by her all the time and drop his own priorities for her, and made her defend himself even when it wasn't his fault. Just because you want someone to drop their own priorities for you does not mean they are selfish when they can't fulfill your expectations. In fact, that shows that you were pretty selfish in the first place and felt entitled to attention or care even when your partner was suffering from no AC, heat, exhaustion, and busy work schedule. Yeah, relationships are supposed to be the dessert, not the main course. You have to make sure that you're pursuing life and your partner's pursuing life, and you don't pull from each other's kind of like core, whatever they're doing in life. If you're going to the gym for 5 hours when you could get on a phone call, that's obviously your priorities are not met there. Number 2, she made multiple jokes like, for some reason, I thought you were going to throw me a surprise at my apartment, or you better come surprise me, something like that. She clearly expected him to not just make time for her, but also go above and beyond for her, which is fair, given how tough long distance was for her, especially when she has anxious attachment style. But to make jokes like that, to throw hint, it's a little demanding and borderline calculated. And again, I don't even know if I necessarily agree with that. I have anxious attachment style. I know what it feels like to be in a long-distance relationship. It is the worst feeling in the world if you're anxious attachment. Absolutely. I side with Jenn in so many different ways for feeling the pain of not getting that reassurance. That's not Devin's problem in all cases. Number 3, they broke up in early August. Before that, his text messages still showed the affection and warmth on his side. So it's not like he just lost interest right away after the show. In fact, you see them having typical relationship issues where both sides had different needs and expectations. Arguments, then a break, then breakup. So it was a normal relationship progression and demise, yet she made it sound like he just blindsided her and didn't give any reason at all. Like, what? He gave you all he had to offer. Like, sure, it wasn't enough for you, but that's all he got in him. He has his own priorities in life, yet you want a codependent relationship. So he tried for a month or 2, then decided he can't keep trying. There you go. Here's your reason. Like, the fact that she can't understand why he broke up with her speaks volumes about how little self-awareness and introspection she has. Like, girl, read your own messages and understand you pushed him away, period. And was he good? I already said no at the beginning of the post. They both suck. Number 4, her bringing up Maria after the final rose as if that was never discussed between them, and then making it sound like they hadn't been talking since early August, lying about him pulling away immediately, was all intentional. She refused to stop reaching out to him after the breakup and asked to meet in person before after the final rose so that she could feel better about all this, and he was slow to respond, which pissed her off again. She even said it's not nice that he ghosted her for 2 days, but dude, they've broken up already at this point. He is no longer obligated to reply, and you are no longer the Bachelorette. So again, we just made that last video where she claimed he ghosted on her, and this person saying, well, it was only for 2 days. Number 5. And again, I'd love to know your comments. Do you agree with this? Do you disagree? Are you somewhere in between? And number 5, her caption, anyway. So she made a post where she said anyway, which was the same thing his ex said. On one of the Instagram posts was the same caption Devin's ex posted a day before. She did it on purpose to throw shade and send her fans to Devin's ex to send hate. It's all intentional. She's smart enough to know she now has the platform she can leverage. She is very self-aware when it comes to social media stuff, as evidenced by her constant mention of TikTok ideas with Devin. Number 6. And I'm on the fence with that. It was snarky, but But it does go to show she like knows what Devin's ex is posting, but I'm on the fence. Again, I'm pretty neutral to this. I just thought it was interesting. Number 6, not once did she ask Devin after the final rose why and how he started changing or losing interest. She spent the time talking about what he did after the breakup and all his mistakes. Because to be frank, she didn't want to know why Devin stopped loving her. That would bruise her ego. What she wanted to present is that Devin is someone completely pulled a 180 for absolutely no reason, and that they barely talked post-show, which again is proven to be false. My point is that she knows very damn well how to weaponize the platform the show offers her to form her own narrative. And in a way, it's very vindictive and calculated of her, which aligns with the true image she has in real life that was shown in his messages. Number 7. She also has a different personality in real life, and what we saw was a persona she put on. The way she talked to Devin via text was very odd. Devin was super loving and caring, but half the time she just gave half-assed responses and moved on to talk about herself. She even said, "I hate the PSSY stuff on the show," or "so-and-so is a see you next Tuesday." That's not very nice of her to say, and most of the time she just sounds whiny and negative via text, which is completely different from the persona on TV. And before you bash me and say, oh, maybe she has depression, well, I too have had depression, and so I know the difference between being sad versus just being a terribly mean and negative person. Number 8, the whole drama with Maria and Maria unfollowing her speaks volumes. Before you guys say I'm a guy and siding with Devin, I'm an Asian chick who's slightly older than her, and while I see Devin's red flags, I also see a lot of the mistakes I used to make in my early 20s, or mistakes most girls make in their 20s, and she has a lot growing up to do. So when you post something like this, other people that might agree that didn't want to comment might then rally around this. I see this on my channel when we have, more complex conversations. Someone said they both seemed immature for their engagement and relationship. He could have done more to show up for Jenn or make her feel loved, even being miles away from her, and she should have set more realistic expectations while being long distance. I don't know. Both of them lacked so much. None of them were truly ready for this whole journey and what awaited them at the end. Someone else said, after kissing many frogs, I found and married my prince in my 30s. Now, when I look back on my 20s, I realize that it's not that I kissed many frogs. I just had immature relationships. Those other frogs have gone on to marry, have children. My point is that while it happens, it's very hard to be in a committed and mature relationship in your 20s, especially coming off a reality show. These comments are extremely gracious. These comments are extremely, they are soaked and steeped in critical thinking. They leave space and grace and humility for, all of us that have been in these situations and go, we've all been in toxic relationships. We've all been someone else's villain in their story. We all have learned and moved on. Someone said, thank you for doing the Lord's work and breaking this down. I too spent an embarrassingly long time pausing Devin's video and reading all the texts. I see Jenn in a different light now. She tried to break up 2 times with him and was not understanding of him and was very needy. They also just need to talk to each other versus all this heavy emotional texting. Hope they both find their own happiness. Someone said, I think he got the ick. And by the way, these are getting a lot of upvotes. There's a lot of people that feel this way. I think these texts show things clearly weren't as one-sided as what was portrayed on after the final rose. I'm sure there are other texts that would paint Jenn in a better light, but some of what's been presented shows her portrayal at after the final rose was objectively untrue or heavily misconstrued. And there's other people that said, someone said, though, it's wrong to show personal texts and we're all shitting on him for it, but we wouldn't have understood his perspective at all and seen that Jenn wasn't exactly perfect without them. So if you're Devin, what do you do in that situation? Not a fan of either of them, really. That's the question. What do you do when you get so much context from such a private thing? Someone said, it's not fair to say we all know Devin is a narcissist. We don't know that, and we can't diagnose him. But I agree, Jenn has her own red flags. She also mentioned breaking up multiple times for attention, and that's a huge red flag. The 2 a.m. expectation really sent me. I respect your opinion and appreciate the time you took to compose your thesis. They said, yeah, thank you. I find psychology very fascinating. Multiple things can be true. Producers can be ruthless and cruel. Devin can be an arrogant douche that is insensitive, and Jenn can be immature, self-absorbed, and manipulative. But even though you make good points and it's a well-thought-out rationale, I'd like to say that I have 2 marketing degrees and have worked in multiple industries, but that in no way is comparable to doing psychologist stuff for work. Whether she's a psychologist or not. Someone said, thank you for writing this. The mob mentality of Reddit makes it hard to see both sides of the story. Let me tell you guys, I've had a lot of people really critical, maybe not a lot, but of my sort of wanting to dive into this. And from after the final rose, when I talked to Steve, God bless him, he's like, oh, Devin's a con artist. I go, I just don't see it. I don't see, or at least I can't see it until I know more about it. I don't know. So anyhow, there's somebody that is in my community that I've really enjoyed their opinions on things. They read the text messages and really wanted me to share them. I won't do it, but I wanted to at least.
Hello.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dave?
Great. I got you on the video. So we just read the Reddit post, but I wanted to get your thoughts. I know you really wanted me to share the text messages because you saw, I guess, a different side of the story from what we saw in After the Final Rose. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know if it would be the best thing to share all of the text messages, but I don't think that anyone can really understand the context of the situation Devin was put in unless you read all of it, because I think his whole point of posting all of the screenshots of every single day from like June to July was so you could see he was there for her every single day. He was texting her. He was like repeat texting her. She would go hours sometimes without replying to him. And like overall, he was just there for her. And after the final rose, she really made it seem like he just completely ghosted right when they got back. And like he didn't act like a partner for her. And I just don't think that's true.
Yeah, that's what I find very tough, because on one end I go, yeah, you should have redacted the sexual stuff, of course. I think that's just like very fair. But on the other, it's not like it's one receipt that proves someone cheated on them. It's like you said, it's the ongoing receipts to go, no, the idea that Devin just wanted to win, you just don't see that here, right?
Yeah, I definitely don't think I feel really bad because initially I thought Devin was a bad guy, a narcissist. I thought yes, he plotted this from the beginning. He just wanted clout. But when you look at the text messages and the day-to-day, it just tells a completely different story. Like he definitely was there for her. He loved her. He told her that many times a day. They were sweet talking each other all the time. Like, if you read those text messages first, and then when you saw Jenn after the final rose, I think there would be a lot more disagreement going on and a lot less siding with Jenn.
Yeah, I mean, when people say, "Oh, Devin had a chance to speak after the final rose," when you look at these text messages, I think you realize that it would be very hard for him to get any point across, because a lot of what she was saying, you can't just break it down right away, Yeah,
if you were to just show like a few screenshots of the messages of them going back and forth, for example, it's a lot of just he said, she said, like her just pounding him into the ground and saying like, oh, you're not doing this. You're not staying up until 2 a.m. Like you'll have my back except when it's 2 a.m. And he's like, Jenn, I have work in the morning. But she's just sending paragraphs and paragraphs of why she's mad at him, and he's just defending himself. And I feel like that conversation is taken out of context unless you know the whole backstory of how their day-to-day conversations are. Have
you ever been in one of these sort of attachment, like anxious attachment relationships before?
Yes. So when I first was reading Jenn's reactions to Devin, and how she was saying how she was so anxious and he's not there for her, and she really needed him through all of these PR events, like right before the show aired. It actually reminded me of myself in a past relationship I've had, where I remember hounding my boyfriend and being like, I feel like you're not there for me enough. Like you don't say I love you enough. Like I'm feeling anxious a lot and you don't really comfort me. And then he was like, listen, like I'm always texting you throughout the day. Like, I have to go to work, I have to like coach a team of high schoolers. I have all this and I'm still there for you. Like we hang out every single weekend. Like we FaceTime almost every day. And like, I do care about you, but I have other priorities. And then when he pointed all of that out, I was like, oh, like you're right. And I just felt kind of ridiculous because I realized I was the one who was being really, really needy, and I was the one who needed, or I wanted all of this extra attention, but it wasn't his responsibility to just give me an over amount of attention when I wasn't really voicing that I was the one like going through a lot of anxiety and depression and stress. Like, that isn't his responsibility to fix me.
Wow. I can totally relate. It takes an anxious attached person to know an anxious attached person. And
Yes.
I am 100% there. I mean, in my current relationship, it's like, look, I'm married. We're good. I still, if I have a show that's sort of like important, I'll channel my anxiety and sometimes pick a fight with my wife if I don't feel like she's giving me an affirmation. It sounds so needy and insecure, and that's what it is. But neediness and insecurity, they only come out during the dark times. So Jenn is in this situation, kind of like Rachel Recchia, where she's lonely. She doesn't have that many people she can talk to. And I think, like you were kind of saying, you need to sort of do that work yourself, because your partner will get exhausted.
Yeah.
And they can only kind of tread that water so long before they're gonna fail you. You can never succeed at reassuring an anxious attachment person. It's futile.
Yeah. And I really feel for Jenn, like reading when she was first sharing her insecurities about being so anxious and having to do all of these PR things on her own, like before the show even aired. And she was just like, it's a lot of pressure, and I feel like I'm all by myself. Like, I would probably feel exactly the same way. Like, she just got back from this fast forward, crazy whirlwind romance with like all of these men and narrowed it down to one guy. And when you get back, it's like your entire relationship is basically put on pause because like no one, she's literally contracted to not tell anyone that she is engaged to this man. And so she can't like bring in all of her friends and like have them support her through what she's going through, because she's not allowed to tell them about everything that happened. So I'm sure it feels really, really lonely. And he's the only other person who's allowed to talk to her about this stuff. So it really puts a lot of pressure on both of them for that, but especially Jenn, because she's the one who's in the spotlight at the beginning of the show airing.
Yeah, and when we watch this show, everyone wants to catch someone for being a bad guy. I mean, my pal Reality Steve, he's a con artist. Dear Shandy, he's a con artist. You get all these thoughts, but then it's like, if he were to go on a podcast and spill his heart out for 2 hours, a lot of people are just going to go, yeah, con artist, you're just gaslighting us. So
yeah.
It's very Blake Horstman-like to say, you know what? That you've put me in this position to release these. Again, he could have done such a better job with that as far as redacting. But yeah, I mean, showing the timestamps of the half-hour long phone calls, speaking till late at night. I mean, there's no defense of saying he's the perfect guy. But boy, did we not get that full story. And sadly, it's kind of a situation where you're flying a little too close to the sun. Jenn comes out, everyone's supporting her. Of course, she's going to get on a bar and yell "F him." And, by all means, you go through a breakup, you're allowed to yell "F that guy," but you can't mischaracterize what happened, because the truth, rightfully can come out. And, his story doesn't tell the whole story, but dang, it's a lot. Like if you overturned all of her cell phone records and all of his, I don't think he's really being disingenuous with the timeline. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think Devin to me comes across as a very honest person. I've been hearing people say like, oh, well, he's still a douche. Like, they both suck. I disagree. I don't think either of them really suck. I think they're both human. I think that Devin is a very emotional person and he takes things really seriously, but I think he gets riled up really easily, as we saw on the show. Like, someone can poke at him and then he just loses his temper, and then he just can't stop like thinking and like running his mouth about a situation that's pissing him off. And I think that is one of his greatest weaknesses, because if he had just been a little bit more patient and held back, then he could have, scheduled some type of interview. And if he's not allowed to do that, he could have waited and maybe gone to Paradise next year. People forget.
Paradise might still be on the table. I mean, who knows?
Devin?
Yeah.
I would love to see Devin in Paradise. I think that Devin's a great person and he's really fun and exciting. Obviously, that's a long time from now, but I don't think he's a bad person at all. I think he tried his best in the relationship. And I think Jenn believes she tried her best at the beginning of the relationship, but I think if she were to reflect on their back and forth messages, like she would eventually see like, yeah, I see how I was putting all of my stress and anxiety onto him, and that wasn't fair.
Yeah, and I'll say this is the other thing with anxious attachment styles. Every time I've been in like a really, really bad episode with that, it's when I was unemployed. So there Jenn is, she's, but think about it. Like when you lose touch of like what your like lifestyle is, she's not really in school. She's kind of probably got a lot of free time, way more than him. And it's too bad they couldn't have a therapist kind of walk them through this because, there could have been a different ending. But anyhow, I really appreciate your opinion. And, I'm glad you were able to come on the phone and share what you think about it all.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
Of course.
I also agree that a therapist would have helped, but Jenn fired their therapist. So,
well, we wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for the text messages. But thanks again, Chris. I'll see you on the Patreon.
Thanks for calling, Dave.
All right, bye. All right, that was our good pal. Look, there's a lot of people with a lot of different views. We try to share them. You know what I mean? You can't shoot the messenger for having the conversation. Here we are. Let me know what you guys think. We'll be back with more content right after this.